She was my icy, untouchable boss, until a Christmas storm stranded her in my tiny apartment and she asked, "Tonight, don't call me your boss." One sleepless night of confessions, grief, and crossed lines shattered the distance between us and forced me to decide who I wanted to be from now on.
My name is Miles. I live in a creaky little apartment on the edge of town. Nothing special about it. A sagging couch, a kitchen table propped up on one wobbly leg, and a few sketches of furniture pinned to the wall, gathering dust. I work as a technician at a furniture design firm, fixing printers and double-checking blueprints for the folks who actually get to create something real. It's a steady job that covers the rent, but it's not the dream I chased when I was younger. Back then, I wanted to design chairs, tables, maybe even whole rooms. I wanted to build things that lasted. Those dreams take a kind of guts I never quite mustered. So here I am, tinkering with machines instead of dreaming them up. I'm not the type to dive into crowds or strike up small talk. Most days, I'm happy to come home to my quiet space, doodle a bit, or watch old movies until I drift off. I don't have many friends, not because I dislike people, but because I've always been better at listening than chatting. As for relationships, a few short flings, nothing that's stuck. I guess I've gotten used to the solitude, even if some nights the quiet feels heavier than others. There was the company Christmas party held in a dimly lit restaurant downtown. I almost skipped it. Parties aren't my scene. Too many forced smiles, too much noise. But blowing it off would have meant another round of teasing from the guys at work, who call me the office hermit. I threw on a decent sweater and showed up anyway. The place was buzzing, laughter echoing, glasses clinking, and for one night, the illusion that work didn't exist. I hung back, nursing a beer, nodding at familiar faces. That's when I noticed her. Nora, my boss. She runs our department with a precision that makes you stand a little straighter just being around her. She stood by the bar in a sharp black blazer and fitted skirt, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun. At the office, she never smiles, not coldly, just focused, like nothing slips past her. People say she's tough, maybe distant. But I've always sensed there's more to her than that. Not that I'd ever say it out loud. In 2 years, I've probably spoken to her 5 times, mostly about jammed printers or software updates. She's always polite, straightforward, and gone before I can think of anything clever to add. That night, though, she seemed different. Not softer exactly, but less guarded. She held a glass of wine, scanning the room like she was filing away mental notes. I caught her glancing my way once, just a flicker of a second before she turned to chat with the senior designers. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of the light. Women like Nora don't notice guys like me. And honestly, I was fine with that. Or so I thought. The evening dragged on past closing time, and the restaurant emptied out. I was ready to head home, my beer long gone, when I saw Nora by the entrance, phone glowing in her hand. She was typing furiously, brow furrowed, the first crack I'd ever seen in her usual calm. Outside, the sky had unleashed a storm, rain pounding the sidewalk like static on an old TV. I shrugged on my jacket, figuring I'd dash to my car, when I spotted her stepping under the awning, still trying to hail a cab. The parking lot was nearly empty, and her app was failing her. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the way she stood there alone, shoulders hunched against the chill. Maybe just instinct. I crossed over, my sneakers splashing through puddles, and cleared my throat. "Hey, Nora, you getting home okay in this downpour?" She looked up, startled, like she hadn't expected anyone to notice. "No cabs," she said. Her voice was clipped, but not unfriendly. "And I live too far to walk. I'll figure it out." I hesitated. My place was 10 minutes away. Hers, up in the hills, was at least twice that on a clear night. I shifted, rain soaking my hair. "My apartment's right nearby," I blurted, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess them. "If you want, you could wait it out there. No strings." Her eyes locked onto mine, sharp, like she was weighing every word. For a second, I thought she'd shut me down. Then she nodded, just barely, just until it lets up. "I'll head out as soon as I can." The drive was quiet, lulled by the hum of my old sedan and the wipers struggling against the gale. Nora sat in the passenger seat, hands folded in her lap, the hem of her blazer damp, I kept my eyes on the road, my heart pounding harder than it should have. She was my boss, I reminded myself. I was just being decent. Nothing more. My place felt tiny with her in it. The single bulb in the living room cast soft shadows over the worn furniture, and the air carried a faint scent of aged wood and stale coffee ground. I handed her a clean towel and rummaged in my closet for an old gray hoodie. "It'll probably swallow you," I said, awkward. "But it's dry." She took it without a word, slipping off her wet blazer and pulling the hoodie over her head. It draped over her like a tent, sleeves dangling past her fingertips. She looked different, less untouchable, more like someone who could belong here. I didn't know where to put myself, so I busied in the kitchen, unearthing half a bottle of forgotten red wine. "Want some?" I asked, holding it up. She nodded, and I poured 2 mismatched glasses. We settled at opposite ends of the couch, the only spot to sit besides the floor. The silence wasn't heavy, but it hung there, waiting for one of us to break it. Outside, the rain drummed steadily against the windows. Finally, she spoke. "You live alone here." Her voice was softer than at work, almost curious. I nodded. "Yeah, just me." Her gaze wandered the room, lingering on the pinned-up sketches. "It's cozy," she said. I caught a fleeting smile. Then, quieter. "I live alone too, but it's different. My house used to be full. Now it's just empty space." I didn't know what to say. I'd heard office whispers about her husband's death, but that wasn't my place to pry. Instead, I sat there, glass in hand, letting her words settle. She sipped her wine, then met my eyes steady, but not cold. "You don't talk much, do you, Miles?" I chuckled, caught off guard. "Guess not. Not great at it." She tilted her head, like she was seeing me for the first time. "That's okay. Silence is honest." And just like that, the air shifted. It wasn't awkward anymore. It was something else. Something I didn't want to end. The rain showed no signs of stopping. It pattered against the panes like a steady heartbeat, turning my cramped apartment into the only shelter in the world. Nora and I were on the couch, the wine bottle half empty, our glasses on the coffee table. The quiet between us hummed now, expectant, like it was holding its breath for a secret. I wasn't sure I had the nerve, but she went on, her voice low, almost a whisper. "Ever feel like you're just going through the motions?" she asked, eyes on the sketches. I followed her gaze to an old drawing of a chair I'd sketched years ago. Sharp angles, impossible curves. I hadn't picked up a pencil like that in ages. "Yeah," I admitted, leaning back. "Pretty much every day. Work, sleep, repeat. Like I'm waiting for a spark I can't even name." She nodded, as if the thought was an old acquaintance of hers. "I used to play piano," she said out of nowhere. "Since I was a kid, I was good. Not a prodigy, but enough to hold a room." I stopped around 30. She took a sip, fingers tracing the rim of her glass. Life got in the way. The job, marriage. And after he was gone, I couldn't start again. The keys felt too heavy. I knew she meant her husband. Office gossip painted a rough picture. Car accident, no kids, just her left behind. I didn't push, but I wanted to know her, not the rumors. "Why not try again?" I asked, careful, like walking on thin ice. She looked at me, eyes keen but not icy. "Same reason you stopped drawing, I'd bet. It's easier to stay safe." Her words hit harder than I expected. I glanced at the sketches, then back at her. I wanted to be a designer, I confessed, the truth spilling out. Not just fixing printers or checking specs. Creating things people keep, things that matter. But every time I try, I freeze. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? My voice cracked a little, and heat rose to my cheeks, embarrassed to hear it aloud. Nora didn't laugh or brush it off. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, the oversized hoodie slipping off one shoulder. "You don't fail by trying, Miles," she said. "You fail by stopping." She paused, and I saw the weight she carried, the kind she hid under crisp blazers and curt emails. And here I am, running a department, signing off on reports, coming home to a house that's too quiet. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Instead, I reached for the bottle and topped off her glass, then mine. It was a small gesture, but enough to keep her going. She opened up about her life before, weekend hikes with her husband, late nights practicing Chopin, laughs that doubled her over. I shared the story of the bookshelf I'd built for my mom, lopsided on one side, but she'd kept it anyway, and how I'd sketch furniture ideas on napkins at greasy diners. We laughed, soft and tentative, like we were handling something delicate. Time slipped past midnight, then 1. The rain hadn't eased, but we didn't mention it. We'd inched closer on the couch, not touching, but near enough that I caught her subtle scent mixed with the damp wool of my hoodie. I wanted to ask why she was still there, why she hadn't called another cab, but I held back. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Suddenly, she stood and crossed to the kitchen counter, where a spare blanket lay folded. I thought she was settling in for the night and started to offer her the couch. But she turned, her fingers brushing my wrist as I reached for the blanket. It wasn't a grab, just a light touch, deliberate. I froze, pulse thundering in my ears. "Miles," she said, voice steady but warm. I didn't stay because of the rain. I stayed because I wanted to know what it feels like to be invited somewhere, to be wanted, even if it's just for one night. Her words hung there, raw and heavy. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came. My mind raced. She was my boss, years older, a woman who'd built walls I never dared climb. But in that moment, she wasn't the Nora from the office. She was just someone like me, carrying too much alone. I wanted to say something bold to match her honesty, but all I managed was a whisper. "You're here now. That's something." She let go of my wrist, stepping back, her eyes searching mine. No kiss, no dramatic rush like in the movies, just a line crossed, not with bodies, but with words. We sat again, closer this time, and kept talking. She told me about her sleepless nights, pacing her house at odd hours, checking locks that didn't need checking. I shared my all-nighters sketching, only to tear up the pages by morning. As the hours wore on, she leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. Her breathing slowed, and I realized she'd fallen asleep. I didn't move. I didn't want to wake her. For the first time in ages, my apartment didn't feel empty. The rain kept falling, and I sat there, her warmth against me, wondering what I'd stumbled into. Was it a mistake? A beginning? Or something that would fade with the storm? But listening to her steady breath fill the quiet, one thing was clear. I didn't want it to end. I must have dozed off sometime later, her head still on my shoulder, her breath soft and even. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but the air in the room felt thick, laced with everything we'd shared. I woke with a start, neck stiff, the pale dawn light seeping through the window. Nora was curled in the corner of the couch, my hoodie wrapped around her like a shield. For a moment, I watched her. She looked peaceful, unguarded, far from the woman who ran our department with an iron grip. My chest tightened, a mix of tenderness and panic. What was this? What had I let happen? I shifted carefully, not wanting to disturb her, but her eyelids fluttered. She woke, disoriented, then sat up, smoothing her hair with a quick, practiced motion. "Morning," she said, voice husky but calm, like waking up here wasn't a surprise. I nodded, throat dry. "Morning. Did you sleep okay?" She gave a small smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes. Better than I have in years. The words landed gently, but they carried a weight I wasn't ready for. I stood, needing to move to shake off the swirling thoughts. She was my boss, a widow with a life I couldn't touch. Last night felt real, but in the gray morning light, it had the haze of a dream I'd wandered into by accident. I fussed in the kitchen, filling the kettle, avoiding her gaze. "Coffee?" I called, my voice too loud for the quiet room. "Sure," she replied, standing and stretching, the hoodie slipping to reveal a glimpse of her collarbone. I looked away, cheeks warming. As the kettle hummed, she leaned on the counter, watching me. "Miles," she said, and the way she said my name stopped me cold. I meant what I said last night. I didn't stay because of the rain. I froze, hand on the coffee tin, my heart hammered fear or something else. "Then why?" I asked, turning to her. "Why stay here, with me? I'm nobody. I fix printers. You're—" I trailed off, gesturing vaguely, as if that bridged the gap between us. She didn't flinch. Her eyes, clear and sure, held mine. I stayed because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was carrying it all alone. You listened. You didn't try to fix me or fill the emptiness with empty words. You were just there. Her voice cracked slightly, and I saw the vulnerability she kept locked away. I'm tired of it, Miles. Tired of pretending everything's fine, of being the one who holds it all together. Last night, I didn't have to. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to cross the room, pull her close, tell her I felt the same, that her being here made my world less hollow. But another part, louder, screamed it was wrong. She was my boss. People would talk. I'd seen how they whispered about her at work, her past, her coolness. What would they say about us? And deep down, what did I want? A fling? Something real? I wasn't brave enough for that either. I don't know what this is, I said finally, voice low. You're my boss, Nora. You're you. And I'm just me. It doesn't make sense. She nodded, like she'd expected it. It doesn't have to, she replied. Not everything does. But I'm not asking for anything, Miles. I just needed one night without being alone. She stepped closer, her hand brushing the counter near mine. No touch, but close enough to make my skin tingle. And you gave me that. I wanted to say anything to hold her there, to untangle what it meant, but the words wouldn't come. The kettle clicked off, shattering the quiet, and I turned away, hands shaking as I grabbed the mugs. I didn't know if I was running from her or from myself. But one thing was certain. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. The smell of coffee pulled me from a dreamless sleep. I blinked, morning light filtering through my cheap blinds. The couch was empty, the blanket folded neatly where Nora had been. For a second, I thought she'd left, as promised. An ache bloomed in my chest, sharper than I'd expected. Then I heard a soft clink from the kitchen, a spoon against porcelain. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and there she was. Nora at the counter, barefoot, still wrapped in my oversized hoodie, her hair loose and tousled. She was pouring from my ancient percolator, the one I hardly used because it took forever. The sight of her so out of place, yet so right, rooted me to the spot. She looked up, catching my eye, and flashed a genuine smile, unforced. "Morning," she said, voice warm but steady. "I found your coffee. Hope that's okay." "Oh, yeah," I stammered, standing and brushing off my jeans. "I didn't think you'd still be here." The words slipped out, honest but clumsy. Her smile faded not in anger, but into something deeper, more shaded, like she was choosing her words with care. She set down the mug and gripped the counter's edge. "You don't owe me an explanation, Miles," she said, eyes meeting mine. "But if you want one, last night was the first time in years I slept through without waking every hour. I don't know why. The wine, maybe? Or you?" My throat tightened. I wanted to ask what that meant, what I was to her, but I stood frozen, the space between us feeling smaller than it should. She handed me a mug, steam curling up, our fingers grazing for a beat. We sat at my tiny kitchen table, the silence easy but electric, like the air after a storm. The coffee was strong, bitter just how I liked it. "You make good coffee," I said, trying to lighten things. She laughed a real laugh, short but genuine. "Practice. My husband used to say it could wake the dead." She said it casually, like the ache had dulled, but I caught the flicker in her eyes. I wanted to ask about him, about her, about everything, but I held back. Instead, we sipped in companionable quiet, the morning unfolding in ways I hadn't planned. She told me about her favorite diner on the city outskirts, one she hadn't visited in ages. I shared stories of my mom's lopsided pancakes, imperfect, but perfect. It wasn't deep, but it was real. When the mugs emptied, she stood, smoothing the hoodie like it was one of her blazers. "I should go," she said, glancing at the door. I nodded, but my chest felt heavy. She grabbed her bag, slipped on her shoes, and paused at the threshold, hand on the knob. "Miles," she said, turning back, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen. "If anyone asks, last night wasn't just about the rain." She didn't wait for a reply, didn't promise a call or another meeting. Just that smile, a knowing curve of her lips, and she was gone, leaving the door slightly ajar. I stood there, mug still warm in my hand, her words echoing. I didn't follow. No need. Something had shifted not just between us, but inside me. For the first time in years, I felt like I could be more than the guy who fixes printers. More than the sketcher who shreds his own work before it sees light. Nora hadn't given me answers. She'd given me something better, a reason to try. I walked to the wall, unpinning an old design, and smoothed it out on the table. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, and maybe, in the quiet folds of our lives where loneliness wraps around us like a stubborn shadow, a single storm can spark the deepest kind of awakening. Picture it. An everyday guy, stuck in the grind of mending machines, offers his no-nonsense boss shelter from a raging downpour. What starts as simple kindness turns into a night of whispered truths where defenses crumble. She, hardened by loss, admits the crush of her emptiness. He, stalled by fear of falling short, finally voices his buried dreams of making something lasting. From their raw exchange comes a truth that hits home. Life isn't a straight path of sure things. It's a web of fragile bonds that remind us we're human. We all wear armor, those safe routines that shield us but slowly suffocate. Failure isn't in the messy try. It's in forever giving up on the dare. Like in this tale, where a driven woman finds haven not in the clearing skies, but in the quiet ear of a kindred spirit, let's learn to shatter our silences. Let's open to others, not to patch a hole, but to turn it into light. In a world obsessed with facades, let's nurture the real. Listen without judgment. Share without dread. It heals us. It launches us toward our truest callings. This rainy night whispers that chance encounters build our strength. They reveal that behind every barrier beats a heart-hunting meaning. And you had a moment when letting your guard down lit up your way? Share your stories in the comments below. They might just guide another wandering soul. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales that touch the heart of living. Together, let's nurture the guts to dream and connect.